A couple of quick NBA topics on this episode. I want to talk about Draymond Green and his indefinite suspension after his latest incident. And I want to give thoughts on DeMar DeRozan and where he fits with all the trade rumors happening with the Chicago Bulls right now. Stay tapped in for this episode of the Basketball Society podcast coming up right now. I'm kind of struggling with this Draymond Green thing, and I want to give my take on what I really see with this. I'm struggling because of the narrative that he needs help. Like there's this whole thing around him needing help right now, and literally part of the condition of him coming back from his indefinite suspension from the Warriors is that he needs to go to counseling. I don't know what kind of counseling we're talking about, but counseling is part of the condition of his return. I'm assuming it has something to do with emotional counseling. I think that's what this all really comes down to, is like the emotional aspect, dealing with your emotions, how you react to things. But my take is also this, what I'm uncomfortable with is acting like Draymond Green, like there's something wrong with him. So part of what's hard about this is because Kevin Durant himself, who was part of this because he played with the Warriors, he got into that incident argument, with Draymond Green, and people point to that as the sole reason why KD ended up leaving the Warriors.
Draymond is actually my friend. Like, somebody I can call when I'm going through anything. Like, yo, bro,
great dude.
Come through. Like, damn,
dude.
Bro, let's hang out tonight. Like, and for him to say that type of shit to me, it just threw me for a loop. And it just really, I just started isolating myself after that.
Kevin Durant was also on the team, the Phoenix Suns, that Draymond had his latest incident with that led to the indefinite suspension. Again, the whole thing against Nurkic. Now, the Nurkic thing, I do think, obviously you have the history of incidents with Draymond Green, with his own team, the punch on Jordan Poole, and on the court against other people. The Kevin Durant thing didn't get physical, but that was a heated argument, public argument, verbal thing with a teammate. So there's a history of like behavior that's unacceptable, and that, so the history of it was obviously part of what also led to the indefinite suspension. But I do think you have to, like, each incident from the time he kicked LeBron in the finals game and got suspended a game, like some of these incidents with Draymond are just bad, like, body awareness. I don't know if there's counseling out there for like just basketball etiquette, but that's more of what I see this as with Draymond Green, is like poor basketball etiquette. Part of the game of basketball, for anyone who plays and knows, like, there are cheap shots, there's flopping. We all know about the flopping culture and stuff going on. People just and the culture of selling stuff. Like you sell things in basketball. So part of Draymond's like basketball problem is that he sells things. He oversells. You play against players that they sell, they look to take charges, or they just exaggerate things, obviously, to try to get a call. That's part of the game. But Draymond takes it to another level, and that's the theme with Draymond, is that he takes things to another level. His reaction goes to another level, right? Like, an argument becomes a punch to the face, and things just go to another level, and that includes what he does, like, with his body, how he reacts with his body. I don't know what the term is for this, if there is a term, or I tend to think of it as just like spatial awareness, which is what I talk about with just players and spacing in basketball a lot in general. Just having a sense of like what's around you. So like, I do think a lot of the incidents with Draymond, you kind of have to look at them as their own thing. There are different kind of examples of things that he's done, again, in game, whatever the case, like with a teammate. But, for the most part, it's Draymond having poor body and spatial awareness, like with the Nurkic thing, for example. Like, and even hearing Draymond talk about it after the game, like how he explained it was like, he even said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like, I was trying to sell and get him off me. I think he just said he was trying to get him off him because Nurkic kind of just had his hand on his back, essentially. And again, this is part of basketball where, but my thing is, like, there are many ways to get a hand off you. Even if you just go like that, you can just swipe somebody's hand off you and that'll be that. The ref might say, hey, cut it out or whatever. They may not. Like, that happens all the time. Just, get off me like this. The fact that Draymond, and it's not like Nurkic was hugging him or doing anything crazy. It was really just like a hand on his back that he felt, that said he just wanted to get him off him. So the fact that Draymond, like, why are you spinning around? Why, like, what is that about? Like, why does your body even end up facing him? You don't even have to look at him. All you have to do is go like this. Just swipe his hand off you like that. But you want to be extra. You want to take it to the next level and do something like that. Even with the Rudy Gobert thing, which is crazy because he just came back off the suspension from that. He's fresh off of that. I saw that as an enforcer who is going to do, like, he's going at his teammate. To me, I wasn't that surprised by Draymond, like, going at him, but he took it. He held him for like almost 10 seconds, maybe more. Like, he took it to the next level. So that's really the theme, is like, for one, I think it's just the basketball etiquette. Now, Draymond is a competitor. He is an enforcer. There are certain players who just get off on, like, physical play, trash talk. Like, once we get going, it's like, that's just how he gets going. So I do think when Draymond sees certain opportunities to kind of take a cheap shot without maybe looking like it's a real cheap shot, like, he's not like full on swinging, most of the time, unless it's Jordan Poole in practice. But I'm mostly talking about in-game examples where his leg kicks out, or, the chokehold on Gobert, that was very deliberate and intentional. But I feel like again, it really boils down to emotions, like just emotional management and how you respond to things. And it is basketball etiquette, in my opinion. Like, this isn't one of those sports where that's going to continue to be accepted and tolerated. Like, you do have to, there's a certain etiquette with every sport, but with basketball, like, you can't, certain things you shouldn't be doing on a regular basis. But I still don't think, like, based on things we're seeing, like, I just see Draymond. Sometimes I think he's clumsy. Sometimes I think he's just he's just trying to do something, like, kind of slick and try to get away with it, and then it backfires because it's just too close, and he ends up connecting, and it just ends up not how he thinks it was gonna end up. Like, I think he tries for, like, inadvertent stuff that ends up connecting, and it ends up just looking a lot worse than what he thought it was going to be. So I think that's a component to it. The craziest thing about the Draymond Green thing that I do want to point out, I haven't seen anyone else point this out yet. Did anyone else notice about a year ago this special that Draymond was doing with Deepak Chopra called The Sessions? I never watched it. I wanted to watch it. I never checked it out, but I think it was on Amazon Prime. It might still be on there. It's called The Sessions. Draymond Green with Deepak Chopra and mindfulness experts, and talking about finding his inner peace, and like, this was like a year ago. So I don't know whose idea that was. If it was Draymond's idea, if it came from the Warriors, if it like, there wasn't much, like, it wasn't like a league thing. It was, again, it might have just been Draymond doing it might have just been his idea or something like that. But there was this whole thing, this whole special around Draymond finding inner peace, and there's a trailer. I remember the trailer for it. I never got to watch the special, but I'm like, now I'm looking back at that, like, wait, wasn't there supposed to be this, like, effort? Because I noticed it. I practice mindfulness and stuff, so I was into it. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be dope. They show Draymond on there meditating and stuff. So now I'm like, what were we doing? Did that work? It reminds me of the John Morant situation when he had his little slap on the wrist suspension at first for the gun thing. Like, they talk about he was doing Reiki therapy and stuff. It was like a week, and then he was back. It's like, oh, it just that quick. You got it. That you just got it like that. So I don't know what happened with the Draymond mindfulness whole finding peace special. Like, if that didn't work, if we didn't stay consistent, if we didn't stay on top of that. But I haven't seen anyone talking about that. I haven't seen anyone mention that in this whole thing, because that was supposed to be a whole thing of Draymond finding balance and stuff. I don't know. That's one of the first things I thought of. I kept thinking about it as things kept happening. I'm like, man, didn't Draymond do that special with Deepak Chopra last year, and this whole thing sitting by the water and meditating, closing his eyes, saying he can feel the shift and find out. Listen, it's a journey. Like I said, I practice this stuff, so it's not, I'm like a few years in, and I still feel like a rookie, So I mean, it's definitely a journey, and you can obviously slip up. It doesn't make you a perfect human being, but I wondered if are we going back to Deepak for sessions or something? Like, what is that counseling going to look like? I'm sure it has mostly to do with just emotional management. Like, people have thrown out there, people have said, like, maybe he's going through something is going on. Like, Nurkic himself said, he needs help. Durant was like, I hope he gets the help he needs. I'm like, man, are we really going there with that language? Like, is that, like, I know how it looks. I know it looks like things just keep happening, but if you look at each incident, it's like, it's usually him defending a teammate or being an enforcer or just kind of being a basketball player who likes to take some cheap shots and try to get away with things. Like, it's kind of stuff he does is kind of usually, I don't want to say part of the game, but it's like the game gets chippy and stuff, and he gets off on that stuff. So it's like, to me, again, I look back at basketball etiquette, like being able to deal with like those basketball things when someone's hand is on your back and how you can respond to that as opposed to not. So it may be looped into a larger thing of like emotional management and counseling, but I do see because people want to make this a society thing, like he's got an issue, like he's got a problem, big picture, like he's got an anger issue. I lean towards like basketball problem. I think we're looking at even more of just like basketball, but they go hand in hand, obviously, as we know. It's basketball society. that is what this is, right? But seriously, that connection is real. Like, to think about the Draymond thing as like he's got a problem, that becomes more of a society thing where it's like, well, what's the problem? Does he need real help? Like, what's the, you do more of a deep dive into like what his issues are. And I mean, I don't know if that's fully necessary. I'm swaying more towards basketball, where it's like etiquette, how you respond, the why you're responding that way goes into like the emotions and the counseling. But, some of it is just like, dude, think like the smart basketball player that you already are. But when certain situations happen, it's like all that high IQ and basketball smarts and genius that Draymond Green has, it's like, they just go out the window. So it's a little troubling, a little confusing, but I want to make sure, like, I wanted to give my take. Like, I don't know how much of a problem Draymond Green has, but he definitely just needs to improve on his basketball etiquette at the very least. All right, so real quick on DeMar DeRozan. There are trade rumors around Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, the two star wing players for the Chicago Bulls. And I'm interested. Like, I do think some teams, like I just saw today, Sacramento is kind of in the conversation for Zach LaVine. Apparently there's a report out there that LaVine wouldn't mind going to Sacramento if he was traded. I would kind of like that for him. But the three teams that have really come up the most for LaVine and DeRozan, and I want to talk about LaVine. I won't talk about LaVine as much. This is really about DeRozan. It's just the fact that they're teammates and they're in similar situations, I think, as, really good wing players that could help a better team right now. So like the Lakers, Knicks, and Heat have been linked to DeRozan and to Zach LaVine. But again, I want to focus on DeRozan. Years ago, I wrote an article back when I was like writing more articles on the website. I wrote an article about DeMar DeRozan, and I said, as talented, he was on Toronto at the time with Kyle Lowry, and going through like the struggle of trying to go up against LeBron every year in the Eastern Conference. And just I had this take that I just felt like DeMar DeRozan, I kind of compared it to Andre Iguodala. All right. So like DeMar DeRozan has put himself in a position to be like one of the top shooting guards in the league, right? During this era, super talented, great scorer, has been able to evolve, has become, one of the top tier mid-range scorers in the league, excellent two-way player. But we've put DeMar DeRozan kind of, and he's played his way into becoming an elite shooting guard in this league. In those years in Toronto with Kyle Lowry, I started to look at Andre Iguodala's situation with the Warriors. If you remember, Andre Iguodala, after the Iverson era, in Philly, like people were trying to make Iggy like, an alpha player, like, and he was that for Philly for some time. But when you look, like Iggy was always super talented, right? Not unlike DeMar DeRozan, very similar, talented wing player, great athlete, great two-way player. And everyone loved Iggy and his abilities and his talent, but he would start to get flack and a knock when he couldn't like lead the Sixers and be an alpha level player like Iverson was, right? He kind of took up that mantle in a way, but he was never that type of player. Very strong player, very gifted, talented player, could do so many things well, but not that kind of player. And it wasn't until Iggy got to the Warriors where he's the fifth or sixth best player, but still playing a pivotal role, right? Just the perfect glue guy, because he's been around, he can score, good playmaker, good athlete, good two-way player, so he fits onto a team that, of course, the Warriors had a super team, stint when they got KD. They debate if they were a super team before they got KD or not. But like, in that role with, alongside Steph, Clay, Draymond, Iggy got to kind of be a floater, kind of like how Andrew Wiggins got to be when he got to the Warriors, like similar kind of opportunity. I even think of the game in the finals when Iggy was calling Wiggins over to the bench, like, hey man, this is how showing him the ropes of like how to be that kind of player. Wiggins, similar thing. Wiggins was a 20 plus point per game guy in Minnesota, gets to the Warriors. You figure he'll still have opportunities, but he's got to fit into a system more. And for Iggy, I felt like that was more natural because Iggy can be a point guard. He's such a special type of player, playmaker, defender, and you got to see that on display even in a minimized role, especially in a minimized role on the Warriors, as opposed to best player on the team role, in Philly. So with DeRozan, right? Like I would love to see DeRozan in a role. Like we have so much talent in the league. There's so much talent in the NBA. Like I would love to see a talented guy like DeRozan get a chance to be on, not just a super team, but like on a team that's a real title contender where he doesn't have to be the alpha guy, the best player all the time. So my take right now, like I'm looking at the teams that are up for, a trade that could go for DeRozan. I'm wondering why the New York Knicks, like why not go for DeMar DeRozan? Why not trade a couple of your guards? Fans aren't crazy about RJ Barrett anyway. Are you like, I just feel like DeMar DeRozan next to Jalen Brunson, like that backcourt. Like I feel like DeRozan is an upgrade. I mean, you've got several guards. You could probably keep like one or two of your young guards. Maybe you have to give up Quickly or Grimes, like one of those two. Barrett, DiVincenzo, like you've got multiple guards. You're probably going to still have a couple. But I'm just like, isn't a Jalen Brunson, DeMar DeRozan, wouldn't that backcourt like be an upgrade from what you have right now? And I really like what the Knicks have right now. I'm not totally against them holding out for a superstar. Like I don't know if Joel Embiid is realistic. I don't really know who would be realistic for them in the next few years. But as far as like a win now mentality, like the Knicks are super competitive. They're a playoff team. They won their first playoff series in over a decade last season. They're in a great spot. They have assets. They have good players. I have them as a competitive thorn on my NBA spectrum, which you can listen to and watch on the podcast. Jalen Brunson was a great get for them, and I kept saying that. I'm like, listen, he's not Donovan Mitchell, but listen, you got yourselves a high-level star point guard that's tough, and that's going to bring everything that you need, that you would want in a New York Knicks point guard. I said that once they were able to pick him up. Listen, Randall is good. Barrett is good. You've got other good players, but I think DeMar DeRozan is a little more elevated. You don't bring him in to be like the savior, to be like the best guy. But the combination of Brunson and DeRozan, I think that's a serious backcourt. You guys got Josh Hart. You got all these guards, right? Why not do a package for a couple of those guards, maybe a draft pick? I don't know, but go get DeMar DeRozan. Like, why not? I'm not saying that's going to make you a contender right away. I think that makes the Knicks better. And the Knicks are pretty good right now. I think that could take the Knicks from pretty good to maybe looking really good. Think about it. I'd like the idea, the look of a Jalen Brunson, DeMar DeRozan backcourt on the Knicks. Jalen Brunson is lights out from three right now. So you can't tell me that they're both mid-range killers. I know Brunson's a post-up guy. So is DeRozan. They both do damage in the mid-range, but Brunson is shooting the three right now. DeRozan can hit threes too. He just doesn't really shoot them. But Brunson is spacing the floor right now. He's scoring from all over. So he's dynamite. I think a DeMar DeRozan right now, because he's still close to the height of his powers. I think you could still get a really great version of DeMar DeRozan right now in the backcourt with Jalen Brunson. I think that experience, that ability combined, I think that would bode well for the Knicks right now. To me, I don't know. I say why not? I think that I would go for that if I was the Knicks. I would look to make a deal for DeMar DeRozan. I think it makes them a little bit better, and that says something because they're pretty good right now. Thanks for watching this episode of the Basketball Society podcast, and thanks for listening. If you're on Apple Podcasts, make sure you're subscribed wherever you're watching or listening from, and stay tapped in for more episodes.